Oh my goodness. Beth, it's so good to see you.
Lisa, it's so good to see you.
This is amazing. We haven't connected in person like this, seeing one another for quite a while. I mean, you and I worked together back in 2020. In November is when you reached out.
Yep.
And I had the privilege of getting to walk alongside you, like on your path to motherhood, and tell everyone just celebrated a big milestone.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so my baby Harper turned 1 on Sunday, January 22nd. She was born 1/22/22.
That is incredible.
Yeah, I think you and I talked yeah, I think we talked a lot about numbers too. So the numbers were really powerful.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. And I'm really grateful that you said yes and jumping in to share your story and the long path that you took. And isn't it just incredible? Like you were sharing with me before the call, you brought out your journal, looking back at everything you experienced. And where do you want to begin? I'm like opening this up to you.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you. So yeah, I opened up my journal. Our first appointment was on 11/20/2020.
Wow.
Maybe I'll step back a little bit and share kind of
where you were
got me to that point. Yeah. So I had 3 different doctors. My first doctor said I had a large fibroid, and that doctor said there's, no chance of getting pregnant. So I saw another doctor, and she was wonderful, but she was at a hospital setting and everything was about to shut down. It was the start of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So we did have a pause, but we found another clinic who took us a few months later. And so we had 3 IUIs, 4 egg retrievals. And from our 4 egg retrievals, we got 1 healthy embryo. 1.
I get that.
Yeah. And as you probably know, right? Like most doctors, right, say it takes 2 to 3 embryos for 1 live birth, right? So I kept like hearing that like play and replay in my head. And so I think I found you, and I was ready to kind of approach the journey in a different way. Just sort of, I knew something had to shift. And so, yeah. And so it did, right?
Was it through the book that you discovered me? Is that how you first connected with me? I'm trying to remember.
Yes, exactly. Yes. I think I saw somebody talking about your book on social media or something from Amazon, something online popped up with your book, and I read your book. Hold On Baby, and it gave me so much hope, like a sort of a new hope and a new light that we hadn't felt. And then we started talking, and my journey really changed.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm so grateful. Like you and your partner, Kate, I mean, you both had this desire to be be moms, and connecting with me, it just means the world that you sought help and were open. And looking back at my notes from, where you were in the beginning, your headspace, I know that was something you shared with me. I want to get my headspace in the right place. You shared with me that you had a lot of doctors that you had worked with. You were on your 3rd doctor, and were very open with me and sharing how burnt out you were, and just trying to get like a protocol that felt great. And you desired to hold on to hope, of course, just through this whole long process of waiting and holding on for 1 embryo. So take us back to like where you were mentally. And I have a lot of notes from we only had 4 calls together, but what that was like. I mean, you were just like, okay, some things need to change. I'm going to get some support through this.
Yeah, exactly. So I got so I think when I started talking to you, it was this very kind of heavy, negative headspace. And for anyone who knows, going through this journey, right? There's so many highs and so many lows. I think for most of us, there's probably a lot more lows, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
every other day you're getting blood work, every other day you're getting an ultrasound, you're waiting for a phone call, right? So it's like
Yeah.
all of this power is in somebody else's hand, right? Your doctor, the nurses.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I I really struggled with that, right? Because I would also do my own research and I would advocate for myself, but there was still this piece of like, oh, they so and so has all the power, right? And so I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
take back what power I could,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's something you really helped me with was the mind shift, right? Like there were parts of it I could control. There were parts of it, right, that were like up to me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and even if I dreaded the afternoons, right? You'd get a call between 1 and 3 and you didn't know what was going to be on, the other line.
Mm-hmm.
And I dreaded that. And at the same time, through the work that we were doing together,
Mm-hmm.
and I will share some other, the other people I was working with as well,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
all of you helped me really like if something if something negative or a setback was going to come up, I still could choose how I responded to that, right? Like, and I
Mm-hmm.
still could find the good in the moment. I still could find the joy in the experience. I still
Yeah.
could find the joy in that moment, even if it was, something else that wasn't going our way.
I
And
love
there
that so
were so many.
much. Yeah. I mean, you've been in a demanding job, right? You kind of shared with me this like
Yeah.
type A controlling headspace, which a lot of women going through IVF are in that space. They can relate. And just the ability that I saw those shifts in you, the ability to let go a little bit. Light control. I think I remember writing light control. You had some control, a
Yep.
little bit lighter control.
I love that. It really, really resonates, right? Like that's
Yeah.
that's what it's about. That's what you want to get to, right?
Yeah. And also, do you mind sharing your age where you were when you reached out to me?
So I think I was 43,
Almost
right? I must have
43.
been,
You were
yeah.
almost 43.
Okay, right. So the other piece of this was our insurance at the time only
Yeah.
covered
Yeah.
fertility treatment and IVF until the age of 44.
Yes.
So
I remember that.
right, and so there was all of this pressure
Yeah.
to try to get everything done, right? And so again, when we started talking, like the idea of like surrendering and and taking care of myself, and you know
Hmm.
it wasn't, and like thinking about like joy and laughter, like that was not in my
Yeah.
vocabulary.
I
um
know.
And in case we end up not having time for this, I just want to say that to this day, I strongly believe that Harper stuck and our transfer was successful because of the laughter that the day of the transfer, I found my favorite nurses and we laughed and we laughed and we laughed. And I think I remember telling you this
Yeah.
afterwards. And that 2 week wait, I laughed so much every day. And so, but again, I would have never thought about finding the joy and the laughter and the ease, right? Like it just
Yeah.
wasn't part of our experience until we talked and I started
Oh my gosh, that's
having
so
that mind
beautiful.
shift.
I love that. Do you know that there is scientific data though about that? Did I ever share that video with you? Maybe I did that video with Dr. Green after we worked together. He shared a study with me that showed if you laugh out loud day of transfer, it significantly enhances your implantation of your
I
embryo.
get goosebumps. Like
So
I
and
like,
he says, go to a comedy show, go, laugh out loud. That's so important. I love that so much.
mm, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, and it's really cool. I'm glad you brought up the joy because when you and I chatted, that was a big part of it. And the lack of kind of just that those pleasurable experiences. And I wrote down, you used to enjoy coffee. I wrote down these things. You used to run, you used to drink red wine, you used to pamper yourself, like nails, facials, all that. And you're like, I don't trust myself. You kind of stopped doing all those things. Like it was just cut it all out. Right.
Yeah.
So those were some of those things that we did talk through, like adding in some more pleasure and not totally depriving yourself. Right.
Yeah.
So, and knitting, you were doing other hobbies. We explored, you made a scarf in the time we
That's
worked together.
right.
Do
That's
you remember
right.
that?
That's right. We had started talking about knitting and I took knitting lessons.
Yeah, you did knitting and coloring, all just different kind of creative outlets, which brought you back into that creative space of
Yes.
playfulness and fun. And
right. And I remember it's like I needed permission, right? Like to have a glass of red wine, like whatever, every once in a while, right?
Yeah, totally.
Or to have my favorite, like whatever coffee. Because it really, like,
Mhm.
we had just gotten to this space of being in the grind, right? Like it was just,
Yeah.
what do we have to do? What do we have to do today? Like, what do we have to check off of a list? And we were just like in that place. I think the other thing that I was doing a lot of was comparing
Yeah.
myself and our journey to other people's. So in
Yeah.
fact, I had to take a break from social media. Um, because you probably remember me sharing that, right?
I
'Cause
do.
there's so many great resources on social media, but finding that
Mhm.
balance for my mental health was really important. Like I, I couldn't hear how many eggs somebody else got in a retrieval. And then I was comparing
Yeah.
it to mine and like, we're
Yeah.
all individuals, right? Like every
Mhm.
single journey is different. And so like those numbers, they don't matter, right? Like whatever somebody
Yeah,
else got. And
exactly.
so,
I'm so glad you brought that up. I do remember that vividly. You said, I'm just getting off of social media. Like Instagram was really hurting you more than helping you. And that comparison, I think many can relate to that. Like you're following everyone's stories and seeing what protocol they're doing and what approach they took. And by you getting off of social media, and it just kind of stopped all that comparison energy. And I think it gave you some freedom, like to focus on you, you know?
absolutely. Yeah. And, you know, I- because, because going through fertility treatments and going through IVF it's hard, right? Let's be honest, right? Like it is
Mhm.
a roller coaster of highs and lows, ups
Yeah.
and downs, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so there's a lot of sadness. And so people
Mhm.
share that and like, and you need the community, right? But like, I think it's so important to go inward. We all know what we need more than the person sitting next to us, right? And I think to take that time to ask yourself what you need is really important. And I had to do that, and I had to take a lot of breaks.
Did you have did you feel like a lot of ownership on yourself as you were the one taking more of the medications through this process? Like how was Kate through this, like by your side through it all?
Oh, so she was great. So I think she's part of the reason that I and we held on to hope, right? Because she could
Mm,
see, she would say over and over and over, like she could see our child like learning
mm,
to ride a bike, right? So she could see all these like developmental things um that I couldn't see because I was thinking of the next blood draw the next day, right? Or I was thinking
mm,
about like, did I take all of my medications, and like, when is the next shot?
right.
um and so yeah, so and it's not to say as a partner that she certainly wasn't removed, right? Like she was
Yeah.
the one giving me all the shots. She was the one who made our medication calendar.
Mhm.
Um, she did all of that, and she walked the journey,
Mhm.
but she was also able to just, bring me up a level when I couldn't do that for myself.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm so glad. We talked a lot about relationships too and different family dynamics going
Mm,
on. Do you remember that?
I
Different
sure do. Yeah.
things.
And I found when I was looking at my journal, actually, I found where we were talking about how I and we hadn't shared our
Yeah.
journey with our family yet.
Yeah.
Um, and so you and I did talk a lot about that. And you were talking about looking at it as a gift to us to tell our families. And we would have that added support and prayers. Um, and in the end, what did we end up doing? So we had we had one close friend who had gone through IVF as well.
Mm-hmm.
We had you, three other people on our sort of support team and our doctors.
Mm-hmm.
And we had one other really good friend who was coming to visit. So we had to sort of explain what we were going through.
Yeah.
And then Kate's mom found out in February. So February 12th was the day we found out that we had one healthy embryo. And about a week later, she found out about our journey. And so one of the pieces, when I was, again, thinking about this conversation with you,
Mm-hmm.
so I think that you were onto something, right? About sharing with people who are important to you and getting that support, and having Kate's mom know, and knowing we had her prayers and
Yeah.
her support and her encouragement, and just having that added person
Mm-hmm.
was really helpful to us. And then on my side, with my mom, we had a scare at 7 weeks, and that was when I shared with my mom, because I really
Mm-hmm.
felt like we needed some extra prayers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so in the end, I didn't end up sharing the journey as we were living it with my family. Yeah, there was a lot. I think there was a lot going on in my family at the time, and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I worried about burdening people because it was hard enough. So I was often thinking about, how would other people do with this kind of roller coaster?
Mm-hmm. And when you did start opening up, did you feel a little bit more ease as far as being open, and that support just flooded your way?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I
Yeah.
felt sort of like a weight
Yeah.
lifted off of me, right? And I felt I felt very open. It's this sort
Mm-hmm.
of like, how there's people who talk about like what keeping secrets does to your health,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
so it was that kind of relief.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, it's important to shift like energy, right? Like, and we talked about different spiritual supports and looking to a higher power. We explored that a lot together, looking at different signs and symbols. And do you remember some of those, I don't know, kind of opportunities that open up to you, just different, through mantras? We talked about some
Mhm.
chakra reading. We did the chakra reading. I mean, there were a lot of things that kind of were revealed to us through this whole journey.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really powerful. So I did a little searching today. I wish I could kind of share the date, but I don't have the date. But I started carrying 3 cards with me. So one
Mhm.
of the exercises, or maybe we did this a couple times, was
Mhm.
I would pull a card and we would
Yeah. Yeah.
sort of talk about it.
Yeah.
So at some point, I started, for every appointment, carrying 3 cards with me. So not only did I carry these cards with me for the rest of my journey of, like, my transfer and leading up to the transfer, but every appointment with my OB, and then when I gave birth. So the cards were, I surrender to a power greater than me.
Mm.
And that card for me was like, I mean, in a nutshell, um, I, I believe we have Harper because I
Mm.
surrendered. I surrendered and I opened up, right?
Oh,
Like
I cry.
I couldn't open up and receive before that,
Mm.
right? And so yeah. And then the other one was, when I'm in alignment with the love of the universe, peace cannot be disrupted. And I
Mm.
think that card, so the card, um, yeah,
Yeah.
the card is beautiful, and
Almost looks like an embryo.
exactly. So I was always thinking of the embryo sticking. And then the other card says, hope is the conduit for miracles.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I haven't framed these yet, but I want to frame them for Harper's room. And the hope piece was just, I mean, it was the two people, you and my friend
Mhm.
Christina, who had gone through IVF. After every appointment, she would send me a text that said hope and hugs, hope and hugs.
I love that.
So yes, so
Oh my gosh. I mean, it's just so beautiful. And like, you sent me the sweetest little gift, that little soul little bowl. Do you remember that?
mhm.
Keeping just that soulful spirit alive and doing what makes your soul happy. And I love that you just were so open and look at this beautiful gift in front of you, Harper. I mean, tell us about motherhood a little bit. Like, just how's that all going? And like, what is it like, you and Kate? I mean, how is it going?
Oh, motherhood. It's exhausting and it's
Yeah.
beautiful and it's like the hardest, greatest job I've
Right.
ever had.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I mean, she's such a miracle, right? I think
Yeah.
um I read once how a lot of people in the IVF community take offense when you talk about a baby being a miracle. And for us, we really feel like there's like this huge science piece,
Mm-hmm.
and there's this like huge miracle, right? Like we
Yeah.
had less than a 2% chance of having a baby, right? And we have our baby. Like we have Harper, she's our baby. And
Mm-hmm.
um the science is real and the miracle is real.
Mm-hmm.
And we let go and opened up to what was possible. And I truly believe that's why we have her.
And she's showing you
Um,
miracles every day. I mean, I think that quote I have in my book about, I believe Oprah says, like, our children are some of our greatest spiritual teachers. I mean, she's probably teaching you all the time, right? And opening your eyes through her eyes, these daily miracles that you see.
yeah, every day, you have to shift expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like she she's getting teeth and she's close to walking and she's
Mm-hmm.
trying to talk and just,
Mm-hmm.
growing and learning and changing. And our plan for her isn't always the plan that she has.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to shift and adapt, right? And um, yeah, she is just like a sunshine. And, the day she was born was another like a crazy experience. She stopped moving and I called and we had to have an emergency C-section. And I had been for months kind of planning her birth and thought I knew what I wanted. And
Mm-hmm.
but like the way she had to come out was like messy and perfect. It was exactly what needed to happen. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I just feel like the luckiest. I
Well,
think
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say the other thing that you and I did or that you encouraged me to do was a vision board.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time I was working remotely. And so I kind of like sat on Zoom for like 12 hours a day. So I worked on my vision board and I had it like right next to my computer.
Oh.
And so I could, every day I sort of took in, right? Like what I wanted, what my future was going to look like. And
Mm.
um, yeah.
Feeling into it. We talked a lot about that. It's that
Mm,
feeling and not just words of affirmation that are up there, but like truly. And I think Kate did an amazing, I
yeah.
mean, job for you and holding that vision for you too, like holding the vision and keeping that really feeling into that. Like this is possible and this is all happening for us.
Yeah. The feeling piece is, yeah, that's it. Like, I think that word feeling is like getting into that, right? Like, how
Mm-hmm.
can like, what is the step I can take to actually like get in that
Mm-hmm.
space? Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I also did have affirmations all over my
Yeah.
screen that
Yeah.
that helped me. And I think one of the things I learned from you was, having the affirmations be um in the present, right? And so one of
Right.
them was, it's all working out for me. Everything is always working out for me. Always expect something wonderful to happen. I trust in the goodness of life to carry me through.
You remember those with our chakra reading?
Yeah, I have them all in my journal.
I love that. That's
And
so
then
beautiful.
I actually ended up recording them, and I would take walks. Yeah, I don't know if you know about this app. It's called, what I use, I'm sure there's many that you can use, but it's called Think Up.
You told me about that.
I did. Okay. Yeah. And so I just recorded them, and I would listen to them a few times a day. And again, it's that getting into that feeling of, oh yes, like this is where I am. I can expect something good.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
What was the ultimate doctor and clinic that helped you through this, that you felt that connection to after go rounds, 3 different doctors?
Yeah. So finally it was CCRM, and it was Dr. Zyman in Boston. I think CCRM was actually founded in Colorado.
I think so. But you
Yeah.
okay, Dr. Zyman in Boston. Did you have the same clinic throughout, or just different doctors, or did you have
Well, so that was the third one. So the third clinic, that was a third clinic and the
okay,
third
so you had other
doctor.
clinics. And that's important, I think, for a lot of people to know too. Like if you're not happy with a clinic, and that was one of the first things you and I chatted about, was like having a good foundational like piece. Like, do you like your doctor? Do you resonate with your doctor? Do you like the clinic? And right off the bat, you were like, I have reservations about my clinic, my doctor, and you made the shift. And that can make a difference.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think for us, that was really important. Like we needed to be someplace where we could ask questions, and sort of the way my brain works and processing for me is I'm a very visual person, and I tend to have a lot of questions. When I was in 2nd grade, I got a demerit for asking too many questions, and it stuck with me. And I know that about myself. I have to be able to ask questions. And so yeah, they were really, really, really great. I remember one night our doctor calling us. It was like during a snowstorm, and she was driving home, and it was our 4th egg retrieval. And I think we only got 2 that were being sent out. And from those 2 that were being sent out, we got 1 back, 1 healthy one that was back. But, honestly, I think that conversation, or around that time, she was feeling nervous, as were we. Again, we had this pressure with our insurance, and so we did start talking about, maybe it was time to move to an egg donor. And so we thought, like, okay, we'll start having those conversations. But I also had this in my being, in my gut, in my person. I had this whisper, right, of hope and knowing that, that our baby was going to make it from that last round.
Well, trusting your inner knowing, I'm all about that. Listening to the whispers. And it's so sweet. I remember like having calls with you, and you had my book like flagged and like tagged, and it literally brought me to tears. I mean, this was like in 2020 when you and I connected, and I'm like, that was right when I'd released it on Mother's Day of 2020. And just like this is who I wrote this for. I'm like, I wrote this book for women like you. And you just dove right in. So thank you.
Yeah, the turning inward and turning to your inner knowing and your spirituality was that piece that I felt like just connected with you so quickly, and it really helped me. I mean, so glad. Kind of saved us, right? We were just in such a negative head place.
Did you always want to be a mom? Was that something you and Kate had talked about? You're like, we want to have a child.
Yeah. So I always wanted to be a mom. And along the way, I kind of thought it wasn't going to happen.
Mhm.
And, you know, I think if you asked Kate that question, she would say, well, I wasn't sure.
Mhm.
Um, right. Cause it's the steps you have to take and the being two women, it was,
Mhm.
you know, just a different journey, right? From a
Mhm.
hetero relationship. And so,
Mhm.
um, yeah, I always did. I always wanted to be a mom. And now like being moms together is
Yeah,
just,
I love it.
it brings out the best in us. And
Can you share
we,
just a tad bit about like what is the process of finding a sperm donor? Is that something you went through your clinic or an outside agency? Or I'm just
oh,
curious.
good question. Yeah, no, definitely an outside agency.
Okay.
Um, so we went, so our first 6 tries. So our
Mm.
first, like our 6, whatever they were,
Do
vials of
IUIs?
sperm.
Okay.
Well,
So this is just trying to get sperm right now.
so we had 3 IUIs and 3 egg retrievals. So those 6 were from one bank.
Oh, okay.
And then we, so it was the other thing, right? So we went to another bank. We ended up going with California Cryobank,
Okay.
and they were excellent for our sort of last try.
Okay.
And a couple things I would say about donor sperm:
Mm-hmm.
don't get attached to any one donor, because you can get attached and be ready to like make your purchase the next day and
Oh,
they're gone.
oh, wow.
Um, and
Like people
or
just sweep in and want to buy, like, is it goes fast? I'm just not sure how this.
exactly, yeah, so it can go really fast. So you can
Wow.
you can search by donors that have a lot of sperm. But like when you're first doing this, you don't know all the ways and the hows to
Yeah.
search.
Yeah.
um, and then but so the most important thing for us was the genetic compatibility, right? And so
Mhm.
that's the piece you need to have, like make sure you have like all of those pieces of the blood work back before you start looking. So that was most important, what kind of genetics are going to match with what we need.
Okay.
um, and this last time we looked, we were looking for a match for both of us because we thought we would try with Kate if this didn't work.
Okay.
And then the family medical history was also really important to us.
Mm.
Um, and then the other piece of the open identity, right? So there's open identity and then there's closed. So if you want your child when they turn 18,
Mhm.
um, to be able to do any research, go back to the bank and say, I'd like to know, more about my donor, you
Mm.
have to choose open identity. So again, like searching by open identity or closed.
Mm. Okay.
Um, so that was important to us. So I think in the end, we had like one genetic like thing we had to look for.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
in the open, we didn't have a lot to choose from. Um, but we like they were brilliant at California, and the donors that we did have to choose from were also like great matches for us. And um,
Mm.
yes, I just think you have to be flexible. And I think
Okay.
that if I'm honest,
Mhm.
we would not have gone with a kind of a small local bank like we did
Mhm.
for our first tries. We would have gone to um, a big one that has a really good reputation
Okay.
because it felt really worth it.
Did you have like a reproductive lawyer and all different kinds of things that you had to go through all those steps or not really?
No, we didn't.
Okay. Okay. So like
No,
would this sperm donor be notified that a child was born from his sperm or no?
that's a great question. We and our clinic had an obligation to notify the bank.
Mm.
Um, and then from there, I don't know.
Okay.
That's a
Okay.
really thoughtful question though, and I have no idea. I have to also say that like we um and Kate would be such a great one to speak to about this someday
Mhm.
if you're ever interested, but like
Yeah.
we feel kind of strongly from where we sit that we want less emphasis on the donor,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because our child is our child, right? And
Yes.
like
Yes.
Kate might not have that biological piece,
Yeah.
but a family is made up of, right? Like
Completely.
so much love and
Yeah.
how are you nurturing that person, right? And
Yeah. Yeah.
so,
I
yeah,
love it so much. I just can imagine you both are amazing moms. Oh
thank you.
my
Yeah,
gosh.
we love this new role.
Oh my gosh. For other women who are just in this struggle, like where you were like desiring for this all to work out, do you have any kind of like words you would leave with them?
Mm, yeah, what would I say? Turn inward, turn to yourself. Um, if you've lost hope, um, turn to yourself, turn to your people, find your people, right? Like I think
Mhm.
talking to people and filling your kind of circle with people who have gone through this, right? That was important to me. So
Mhm.
your journey, and in the end, right, like connecting with you, somebody who also had one healthy embryo, right? Like that
Mhm.
just
Mhm.
yeah, it just felt like such a match.
Mhm.
And my therapist, my acupuncturist, and my yoga instructor
Mm.
all had fertility
Wow.
journeys.
Wow.
And so I think kind of seeking out those people um, are really important, and turning into yourself, because there's all the kind of noise outside, and a lot of it's really important noise, right? Like those conversations with your clinics
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
advocating for yourself
Mhm.
are really, really, really important. And then there's so much happening on another level, right? Like your baby chooses you, right? Like, and
Yeah.
that connection is there. And as you're going through your journey,
Right.
um, right? Like as you're going through it, like your baby's there. Um, I think you and I talked about writing letters. I wrote
Yeah.
lots of letters to Harper.
You did.
Mhm. I wrote letters after, like, night before retrievals. Anytime we got news, I wrote a letter. Um, every day I wrote a letter after our transfer, which was on May 10th. Um, I would just, yeah, really encourage people to tap into the spirituality piece, um, because it it cracks you open in a way um, that opens you up to the ease and the joy that you can find. And I think the vision boards, I think affirmations, I think
Mhm.
signs. So one of the things you and I would talk about were signs. And did we ever talk about turkeys?
I wrote it down, but I don't remember what that was referring to.
Yeah. So
Turkeys were,
you
yeah.
had kind of opened my eyes and my mind and my heart to like signs, and if I saw
Mhm.
something, like what it meant. And
Mhm.
I started seeing turkeys, and
I love.
turkeys are, I didn't know this until I did a little research, but turkeys are a sign of fertility. And
Oh
so
my
every time I would see a turkey, I I like knew something good was coming.
I love it so much.
And
A
so
turkey.
anybody going through IVF and all of, the pain that can be part of it, there are still so many signs and
Mhm.
so much good that you can create, and joy and laughter, um,
Oh.
and finding joy and laughter in your clinic too, right? Like there's going to be one or two nurses or somebody like you're just going to really connect with. And on some level, right? Like, is it a
Mhm.
TV show? Is it like, what is it, right? Like, they need the
Mhm.
laughter as much as you do.
Oh,
And
totally.
that kind of connection. Um,
Keeping that light alive, right?
yeah, it's the light alive. Exactly.
Oh, well, I'm just over here like tearing up because you're so right. Our babies do choose us. And
Mm,
it's just, I'm lost for words. Like you holding on to hope for your one embryo and like seeing where you're at, it like brings me the greatest joy. So thank you so much for,
thank you.
for sharing with everyone and being so open and just Harper is so lucky.
Well, thank you for helping me to find the ease and find the light and
Mhm.
find the joy on a journey that I never, ever imagined, um, while I was going through it, being able to feel any of that.
Mm.
And our first conversation on November 20th, 2020 really cracked me open.
Wow.
So thank you.
You're so welcome. Thank
If
you.
I
I'm
can
sending you the biggest
ever,
hug.
yes, and if I
Maybe
can
we'll get to meet in
ever,
person one day. I want to meet all my clients in person.
yes.
We got to have like a retreat and like meet somewhere.
Oh, I would
All of you.
love that.
Okay.
I would
I'm
love that.
brewing now. I'm
And
thinking
if
about
I can ever answer any questions or help anyone or help you, I think
Thank you
I
so much.
just want to give back.
How can people connect with you if they do have questions and want to reach out to you further? What would be the best way? Would it be through an email? Do you want to
Yeah, email.
handle an
You
email?
can share my email address for sure. Um, Probably not Instagram since I am
We
on and
cut that out.
off.
You cut that out.
Right? Yeah, I know my boundaries and I know what my mental health kind of needs. So
Yeah.
yeah, email for sure.
Okay. Well, I'll put your email in the show notes, and I'll give a shout out to your doctor and CCRM. You said Dr. Zima Foss
Dr. Zyman,
Zyma.
Allison Zyman. Yeah.
Okay. I'll get that.
Yeah.
But love you, Beth. Thank you so
I love
much.
you too. Thank you.
We'll talk
Thank you for
soon.
bringing this joy to our family.
Oh, such an honor. Love ya.
Love you.